Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Alex, and if you haven't heard the news, Apple dropped a bunch of interesting stuff today. A lot of that stuff can answer a question that I've seen pretty often, and it's whether or not the iPad Pro can replace your everyday computer, and whether or not it's worth upgrading from the 2018 current model to the new 2020 iPad Pro. So today, Apple broke the silence, and we can finally dive into a new iPad Pro, and we could also talk about a couple things that were also refreshed. So first things first, Apple did refresh the current 2018 iPad Pro with a new processor, that processor being a new A12Z Bionic chip, which is supposed to be a big upgrade over the A12X, so I would assume better scores and performance all around the board for the new iPad Pro, and the current iPad Pro is already really powerful, so seeing a new iPad Pro that's much more powerful is definitely going to be interesting. The camera also changed, so now you're getting that rumored ultra-wide sensor, and you're also getting a 12 megapixel wide camera. So a dual camera, not a triple camera, even though it does look like that same architecture or that same style as something like the iPhone 11 Pro Max or iPhone 11 Pro. You're getting that triple camera style design. However, what you are not getting is a third telephoto camera. So if you're still iffy about the whole iPad cameras and why it really matters upgrading them, because not a lot of people do use the iPad cameras for taking photos, there is some definite uses you can get out of these new cameras. The rumored depth sensor is now here. It's in the form of a LiDAR sensor. It's basically a time-of-flight system that shoots lasers at whatever you're aiming at and calculates distance through reflection and allows it to create a 3D depth map. Since we didn't get to see this iPad Pro get launched on stage or have any demos of this new sensor, what you basically can know from it right now is it's similar to the Face ID 3D sensor. However, a LiDAR sensor has been used in things like autonomous driving, self-driving cars use it for 3D depth mapping, and when the iPad Pro does come out next week, we are going to be able to take a deeper dive into it. It's not a brand new technology. There's been articles talking about Apple using it since 2015 on technologies before. However, introducing it on the iPad Pro can improve augmented reality applications, more precise measurements, and general camera improvements. Pairing a LiDAR sensor with a 3D camera could be useful in applications that do use augmented reality, like item tracking or indoor room scanning, and it could even allow portrait mode to operate on the rear cameras with improved accuracy and speed. I've discussed this before. I've actually used the front-facing camera to scan things before in a previous video that I was talking about the iPad 2020, so it's definitely interesting that it has arrived. That being said, the iPad Pro also is featuring 5 new studio-quality microphones, so something similar to what we've seen on the MacBook Pro. Good microphone. It's definitely interesting to have for FaceTime or just general video creation, so I definitely am happy to see it on the new iPad. Apple also improved Wi-Fi performance with support for Wi-Fi 6 and up to 60% faster Wi-Fi on LTE. They also dropped the 64 base model for an upgraded 128 gig model. There's also a new Magic Keyboard coming that does have a trackpad, which is definitely big news for the iPad that usually was meant to be used just fully touched. Sure, we got third-party mouse support through accessibility, but it was never really there. Now, Apple's supposedly supposed to have a full track support coming on iPadOS. I don't know how that's going to work. So far in the demo that we've seen online, it looks to be this kind of snappy hybrid cursor. Doesn't look to be an original, just normal Mac OS cursor, but maybe they don't want to aim for that. We're definitely gonna have to have it in person to see how it operates, and it does launch in May, so it's not launching next week alongside the iPads. The big focus of this new keyboard is that it actually appears to float your iPad over the keys. It's definitely cool looking, and it also adds a USB-C port that allows you to charge your iPad and free up the main port. That's definitely awesome and something I've wanted to see for a long time now, without having to use some sort of external USB-C hub. You now have the ability to work off a hard drive while charging, so no more hubs. The keys are also backlit, so it's definitely interesting to see. The new keyboard will also work with the current iPad Pro, so if you're not really needing an upgrade, but you want to have the new keyboard, you do have the option to do so. And everything sounds sweet so far until you get to the price. It's coming in at $300, so it's definitely a hard pill to swallow if you're in the market for a new keyboard. So an accessory that's $300 is somewhat crazy, but we got to see it in person before we can judge it. Other than the iPad, Apple also refreshed the MacBook Air and Mac Mini. They also dropped the butterfly switches on the MacBook Air, which I wasn't a real big fan of at the time, so it's definitely nice to see a Magic Keyboard on there. Now, that being said, they also doubled the storage from 128 to 256 as the default, updated the specs, and it's all coming in at $1,000 for the base model and $900 for students. So it's definitely not a bad deal, especially coming from Apple, which is always known to not be the best bang for buck. The new Mac Mini does seem to be pretty similar, but they did double the storage on some of the base models, so that seems to be the refresh that they're going with. So with everything being kind of strange lately with all the current events, Apple brought a little bit of light back into the tech world with all these new announcements, so stay safe everyone. Expect new videos coming within the next weeks on the iPad Pro, the new MacBook Air. It's been Alex. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.